Services. Listen, I feel like there's no need for me to introduce myself anymore. I've done so many of these things. If you're watching our YouTube channel, you've seen me before most likely, but my name is Evan. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am the Director of Youth Programming at Trans Family Support Services. One of the programs that I get the opportunity to oversee is our Konnections Mentorship program. And since January is National Mentoring Month, we thought we would take a second to highlight some of our mentors who are part of this program, so that we can talk a little bit about Konnections, talk a little bit about the importance of mentoring, and hopefully, give some more understanding of why this program is so essential to the work that we're doing. So that all being said, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. I'm so sorry if you hear animal noises happening in the vicinity. Home for the holidays, what can I say? But we'll go ahead and we'll get started with introductions. I'll just call a person and then we can popcorn from there. So Nicole, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure. I'm Nicole. My pronouns are she, her. I started with the mentoring program about a year and a half ago, I feel like it's been. And I wanted to do it because I feel like this program is so helpful to be able to, help other, especially the trans kids. That's where that's where my heart is. And so to have been able to be a kid and go through that process and get mentoring would have been amazing for me. So that's why I feel it's so important. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. And Nicole, what do you do in your mentoring life?
So I was a stay-at-home mom, and so I went into the mentoring program, and now I volunteer at Uptown Community Services Center as well. So yeah.
Awesome. And then do you want to popcorn to someone to introduce themselves next?
I don't know. Cass.
Thanks, Nicole. Hey, everyone. I'm Cass. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a teacher in real life, middle school. And I guess I got involved as a mentor because, like what Nicole said, I just wanted to be the sort of adult that I wished I could have had when I was a kid. And, we all know, I guess in a lot of ways, how much of a big difference just having one adult who's been through similar experiences or who you can talk with over these really unusual, very, unique experiences of being trans. So it can make a big difference. That's why I signed up. And I'll popcorn, is it Elio? Or you?
Yeah,
right?
It's Elio. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Elio. I use he, they pronouns. I'm currently a student at USF. I'm studying biology, so that's what I'm doing. And I got involved with the mentorship program. I'm sensing a pattern here because I also wanted to be the adult that I didn't get to see when I was a kid. There's a pattern. But yeah, that's also why I wanted to join the mentorship program. I actually started off as a mentee, which I can probably talk about later. But for now, that's me. And I will popcorn it to Jesse.
Thanks. Yeah, Jesse, he, him, photographer and a mentor in this program. So much joy to, just like everyone else, sort of serve as just an existence, an example of joy for some of the younger, and I get so much back from this experience. And there are big things right now, but for me, what I see is work. So yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Jesse, I'm noticing a little bit of cutting in and out with your audio. I'm not sure if it's internet or if it's a microphone. We're going to roll with it. I just wanted to make you aware. In case there's things that we're missing. So for those of you who are watching, we do have a chat function that we're able to use as panelists all together. So there may be times when I ask Jesse to pop things in the chat so that we can get clarity on things if we miss them. Cool. Okay, great. So yeah, the common piece here, is that piece of none of us got to have an adult who identified like us when we were coming out. And what's really cool about this panel, what's really cool about this grouping is all of you are different ages to one another, and you all have different ages of mentees that you're working with. So that's a really exciting piece for me, because I feel like that's going to help lead us to some unique pieces in our conversations. But it does make me very happy, and it's, I think, interesting for folks to know that overarching piece, that piece of being the adult that we didn't get to have, that's still ultimately like a universal thing for us. So Jesse's going to hop over and grab his headphones, and hopefully that'll help a little bit with the sound for those of you watching. Okay, so I guess we kind of already got started with it, but this kind of piece of how and why did you become a part of the Kyler's Konnections program? I think it's interesting because I've only ever worked with one of you directly, and somehow the rest of you found our work. I know a little bit about how some of you found us, but others I'm not super familiar with. So can we talk a little bit about how you came to be a part of this program and kind of what that looked like for you? And maybe we'll get started with the one that I do know. Elio, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of that transition from mentee to mentor?
Yeah, absolutely. So for some context, I started volunteering with trans family and like being involved in trans family after my mom forced me to attend a support group. It's actually a really funny story because at the time I was a very angry teenager, and anything my mom wanted me to do, I was adamantly opposed to doing just out of principle. So I didn't want to attend the support group. And then I attended it and I had a great time and kept coming back. And eventually my mom, I don't know if the program had just started or if she heard about it somehow, but she thought that it would be really good for me to have a mentor to help me in my journey. I had just come out socially to my school. This was my senior year of high school, and I was just starting my medical transition. I was just newly on HRT, and my mom thought it would be a great idea for me to become a mentee and have someone guide me. So I put in an application, and then 2020 came around and everything got a little messed up. So to no fault of anyone, that didn't end up going anywhere. But 1 year after I had started HRT, Evan actually reached out to a bunch of youth that were volunteering with trans family and asked if I would like to be a mentor. And I said yes, because I thought, what a great way to give back to my community than to be the guide for someone that ideally is just like me. That's what the program tries to do, is connect people who have similar journeys. And so, yeah, that's why I wanted to become a mentor, and the SparkNote story of how it happened.
Thank you, Elio. And yeah, you were actually part of our first mentee orientation in 2019. So right as this program was kicking off, it did hit a super weird snag with 2020 and shutdown. We initially had been doing a lot of the orientations and trainings for this programming in person, and so switching to that piece of virtual was difficult. And this whole mentor group has only ever known us as a virtual program as mentors, except for LEOU as a mentee knew us in person. So it's definitely interesting to kind of see how that has evolved. Jesse, I think, is the most recent to enter our program. And so you've definitely seen the most fine-tuned iteration out of everyone here. But Jesse, if you want to talk a little bit about how you came to be a part of Kyler's Konnections.
Yeah. Hope you guys can hear me okay now. So yeah, I had been looking to get involved in virtual mentoring service, and started researching. I saw come to Konnections, for me, sorry guys, it gave me an opportunity to give back and to younger trans person that have trans joy. We can survive. We can have full lives. Glad that you had already created the framework, because my mentee, yeah, and we talk a lot of the time, and it's really great. So
Yeah, a little staticky still, but I don't think I'm missing as many words. What I think I heard was that piece of, joining this program because of the piece of giving space for trans folks to see that we're able to be like happy and successful people beyond like the starting out our journey, right? And for so many of our youth, they think, well, I'm never going to be able to interact with a professional world as my authentic self. And so many of our kiddos think that they have to be like in the closet in order to be professionals or in order to be successful in school. So Jesse, with you in particular, I was super excited to be able to match you with someone because, your kind of projects with your career have really centered the trans community. And so that's something super cool for our kiddos to get to see, of like, we are allowed to celebrate ourselves and celebrate our community. And you and your mentee aren't even in the same, are you in the same time zone? You're not even in the same time zone, are you?
well, we weren't. So, but bother me to be in a different time zone from my mentees.
It's really cool that during 2020 and with everything shutting down, we were able to do that piece of pivoting to virtual, because now we're able to have a mentor and a mentee who are in entirely different states, who are able to be connected with one another and get access to this programming. So I'm very grateful that you're here with us. Okay. Nicole, do you want to talk a little bit about how you came to be part of our programming? I know your history with our org is long, so I don't know the whole story, I don't think.
So I met Kathy about 7 years ago, maybe longer. She was at the church that I have been attending for about 8 years, the Metropolitan Community Church of San Diego. She was there to speak, and she had talked to me that she wanted to start this program and asked if I would, be interested in being a mentor. And I said, absolutely. And so finally, fast forward, 6 years, then I was able to get matched with my mentee. And we have kind of just bonded. Like it's not like we're even in a program. I mean, we're just friends now. All of my family and my mentee's family. So it's been really great. We just went ice skating yesterday. So we have a great time. My mentee is young. She's 11. My daughter's 7. So, while they're playing, it gives me and the mom a chance to talk, which is really great. And so I just feel like I've known them for a very long time. Yeah.
It's so funny, Nicole, because every time I go in and I check, your records with your mentee, in my brain, you've also been with your mentee way longer than like officially.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see, because you all do have this really interesting relationship due to the age of your own child and your mentee's age, where you get to also kind of be mentoring mom and helping her to understand the things that her daughter may anticipate as she's growing up.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of things and times that, she will ask me things, and then I'll give her some advice. Of course, I never tell her what to do, but I just let her know things that in my own, journey. And it does, it helps her a lot to understand things.
Awesome. I think about how much easier it would be for so many of our parents if they were able to have the relationship with an older trans person like your mentee and her family get to have.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. And Cass, how did you get to be part of Kyler's Konnections? How did you join us?
Hey, I wish I could say. I mean, I go to a lot of LGBTQ events and groups and probably sign up for a lot of mailing lists. So I think I just saw it in my email or maybe someone told me about it. But I do remember is like kind of thinking about whether I actually wanted to sign up or not. Because I was like, I already spend all my my work time with kids. Do I want to do extra? But I'm really glad I did because it is such a different relationship between a mentor and a mentee. And even like I have LGBTQ like trans students, but again, like I don't go ice skating with them, which is like one of the in-person things that I plan up soon with my mentee. And I also think, like Nicole said, like being able to talk to my mentee's mom about, like I really feel like it helps it helps my mentee's like entire family, and then it's super rich and rewarding for me too. So I'm glad I said yes to that email or something. I don't know how. I'm sorry. I don't remember the exact origin story. Yeah.
However you got here, it's pretty exciting. And yeah, your relationship with your mentee. I mean, I got the opportunity over the summer to interact with your mentee's mom, like right after the two of you had been matched. And mom was already talking about the difference that she and her kiddo were experiencing because of being connected with you. So it is really cool to kind of get to watch that piece. And I do appreciate you joining because I get it. I get that piece of I work with kids every day and then I'm going to invest my free time in more children. But it is different. It's cool to get to do that kind of one-on-one piece.
Yeah.
Cool. And Cass, remind me of how old your mentee is, because I feel like I know everyone else's mentees.
My mentees, I want to say 12 years old.
Okay. So yours and Nicole are pretty similar in age. And then I know, Jesse, you're mentoring an adult, right? A college student. Oh, you are totally muted, my friend. I cannot hear you at all. That's okay. We can figure it out. I still can't hear you. Yep. So I'll switch over to Elio really quick while you figure that out. Does that work? Cool. Elio, your mentee is currently a high schooler. Yeah, a high school freshman. And you came out right in your senior year of high school. So kind of what has that piece looked like? Do you feel like you are able to relate really closely to your mentee? Do you, like Cass and Nicole, have a relationship with your mentee's parents? Kind of what does that piece look like with mentoring a high schooler?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have that close of a relationship with my mentee's parents. So for context, we're both Latinx. And when it comes to like other people talking to parents, it can be a difficult thing to navigate in our community, especially when it comes to our moms. I mean, my mom, when I first came out, she thought she knew everything. And it was really hard to like tell her like, no, you don't know, everything and give her advice. So we're actually both navigating that right now. In terms of the high school thing, I came out my senior year of high school and started my medical transition in November. And by March, school had been completely virtual. So I never really experienced what it was like to be trans in high school because I came out and then high school wasn't high school anymore. So it's kind of like we're both navigating high school together and what it's like being trans in high school together. Because my mentee's a freshman, and freshman year, you don't really know what's ahead of you yet, especially when you're trans. So it's both exhilarating and a little terrifying. I simultaneously feel like I am, the wise wizard guiding my mentee on this path, and also simultaneously a second freshman.
I'm sure it's a very unique circumstance of that piece, of not having been out prior to your college experience, and then even I know your college experience was also delayed by COVID-19. So this piece of being in an out kind of social arena as a trans person maybe feels a little intimidating now that you're walking through it with your mentee. It's cool that they have you though. All right, Jesse, let's see.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Okay.
Okay. All right. I don't know why the technical difficulties is happening, but yeah, just kind of like Elio, and um, I, I went through college navigating and navigating a very difficult family situation. So it's powerful to really ride with them, and not just, but I understand. Here's what happened when I went through that, and um, sort of overreach them. It's a very authentic connection. I think that's really powerful. Is just by sort of affirming, helping them navigate for them a difficult transition. So.
And Jesse, you're in the unique position to the rest of the mentors kind of joining us today in that your mentee actually doesn't live at home anymore. Your mentee's a college student in like a dorm situation. Have you, obviously, you haven't formally menteed anyone else through our program, but has there been unique circumstances with kind of navigating, you mentioned family relationships, in addition to this piece of mentee isn't in home with parents? Does that make it easier? Does that make it more difficult? Kind of what does that look like for you both?
Yeah, I think it's to in college, and then was at home for powerful. We communicate, so we can communicate all day, basically at home a bit when during break. Instead of having to, we can sort of have this more private, which I think that's sort of instantly feels like a very modern way of mentoring. And I work as someone who did media and I have a little bit of a love-hate situation going really well. And for the past, I'm doing a lot of sort of online with other people in the community, and it's a have support of parents. You don't have support of parents. You can have this private connection with a community member or supportive person. Pretty much, if, for these kids, it's actually a great method, and it's working great for it.
A little bit of spotty audio there, but I think I got the piece of being able to have that opportunity for the virtual connection and how much that allows this privacy piece. And I think you referenced how was it back at home has given your mentee more privacy because they're not in a dorm situation, or was that vice versa?
But my mentee just over the past few weeks, they were at home, or you're, a college student, or you can be sometimes hard if your parents aren't supportive. But the fact that we've already established and made it really easy to communicate, and to go through their parents, they didn't need to get a it wasn't waiting a Zoom room with a bigger group. It was realized one-on-one that was virtual, that no one else had access. And I think that has been a great communicating.
So that piece of being able to do the one-on-one connection has allowed more of that privacy. You're not waiting on a Zoom room for folks to let you in. You're able to have like that direct communication with this person that you're reaching out to, and that piece that you and your mentee were able to establish your relationship while mentee was away from parents, was at the dorm, so that being back at home with parents, that didn't have to be such a barrier. Yeah. We're gonna get through this, Jessie. It's gonna be great. Yeah, it's definitely a piece that we've seen where, you know, we can really lean into this piece of parents either being an additional obstacle for us as we're navigating kind of how to best support our kiddos, or parents are super on board and able to support. And we definitely see more of the parent involvement with younger mentees like Cass and Nicole have. And I think there's also a unique circumstance of the ages of those mentees being able to be affirmed in your identity, and the fact, like Nicole mentioned, her mentee isn't, you know, doing things like medical transition at this point, because that's not where she's at, if that's ever something that she wants. And so the questions that she and her family may have are going to look very unique to this, you know, preteen experience, or this entering like consciousness experience. I don't really have a whole lot of memories from before middle school, so like I don't know. But Nicole, in particular, for you as both a parent and a mentor, kind of what has that piece looked like? Of do you wish your daughter had something like what your mentee has, or do you want your daughter to one day have something like this? And how have you kind of seen that piece of being in the position of parent and mentor? How do those interact for you? You're muted.
There we go. So, yeah, being a parent has really helped me to be able to connect with my mentee. I don't think that I would have been able to connect as well if I didn't have that kind of, if I hadn't been a parent already, because I didn't work around children, or so most of my friends, their children were already grown. So, I just, it's helped me a lot to be able to connect to her, and also to connect to her mom, so I can be on that mom level with her. And so that's helped a whole lot.
Cool. And then Cass, you're a teacher. You're working with kiddos every day. What's, what does that dual perspective give you? Do you feel like with Nicole being a parent, is it easier to connect with your mentee because you have so much experience working with kiddos? Is it an entirely different arena? Kind of what does that look like?
I don't want to like dissuade people that don't have experience with kids from signing up for Kyler's Konnections is the problem. I do think it made it a lot easier. Like, I'm well practiced at hanging out or communicating with and listening to that age range. And I'm also I have like my finger on the pulse of all the interests, like and a little bit the slang too. So I think it was really helpful. And, but it is so different, like a relationship. And I think that you can really see how, in both cases, whenever I have an LGBTQ student, I think you can see how meaningful it is to have like, a trusted adult or some sort of role model that is going through or has gone through similar journeys. And yeah, so it's really wonderful. And I feel like it's just like all the best parts of teaching is what it feels like when you're hanging out with a student or hanging out with the mentee.
Well, how would that dissuade a teacher from joining the program, Cass?
No,
you got it.
I don't want to dissuade people that aren't teachers. They'll be like, oh, I'm not good with kids, maybe, or I don't know if I'd be good. Maybe I shouldn't sign up. But I think you'll figure it out no matter what. like as long as your heart's in the right place.
Well, and that's the thing that I feel like all of us have kind of said in these moments of it really is being the adult that we wanted to have. And that's a universal experience. Our kiddos, and I've gotten to see it. I work very loosely with our youth. I don't get this very one-on-one connection. I help with the support groups. I do GSA visits, and it is just that piece of them seeing that we're allowed to grow up. I mean, like Jesse mentioned when he was introducing himself, we're allowed to have jobs. We're allowed to continue to assert our identities. For a lot of these kiddos, that's enough to get your foot in the door, and then you'll Google how to play Fortnite and go from there, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Elio, did you want to add anything about that piece of youth and kids and working with Kyler's Connections?
I did want to add something actually. Building on what Cass just said about, oh, what if I don't have experience with kids? The good thing about this program is that our mentees are all very different, right? Because people are very unique and different. And so everyone will want something different. Some mentees really do want like that teacher figure to really guide them. Some just want a friend to play Roblox with. Some want that like weird cousin that you see once a month and gives you a rock and says, I got this for you on my travels, and then disappears. So it really is, no matter what experience you have with kids, there is guaranteed something you will be able to bring and provide for your mentee. And that's just what I wanted to say.
Yeah. I mean, we have a mentor-mentee pair who I think are within a year of each other's age. And so for them, it very much is this piece. They're part of a trans femme Discord server for like gamers that they just interact in that Discord server together. And they don't really do a whole lot of one-on-one mentor-menteeing because this mentee just needed someone to help her get connected with other trans feminine people. Which kind of brings me to another piece that I wanted to talk about a little bit. And it's this kind of unique experience that our trans femme folks have. So, we were very intentional in figuring out this panel that we were like, we want an equal distribution of different experiences. We want to make sure we're reaching our trans feminine mentors and mentees, our trans masculine mentor mentees, our non-white mentors and mentees, right? Like figuring out this piece because it does change kind of what that experience looks like. And I think it's interesting that, Cass, Nicole, you two are some of the most involved mentors with our program. I joke with my partner all the time. I do monthly, for those of you watching, I do monthly check-ins with all of our mentors and get an idea of kind of how the mentorships are going. And the first people to respond are always our trans feminine mentors. I don't know what that's about, but it's this really cool phenomenon where I think our women and our girls who become a part of this program are just very invested in it. And like, as a trans masculine person, I would perceive that to be because there's less of you all represented in mainstream media. That's what my assumption would be. But I don't know, do you all think there is anything unique about being a part of the trans feminine or the trans woman experience that kind of drew you to this program? Or did you notice that there was a gap of trans women role models as you were going through your own journey? And Nicole, if you want to take that first.
Yeah. So for me, I started my transition back when I was 17. I, had legally changed my name by 18. I was a club kid. And so for me, my role models, there was, I grew up in the South, Knoxville, Tennessee. And back then in those, in that time frame, there were a lot of trans drag performers, and they kind of took me under their wing, showed me the way. And, they just kind of, again, in the South, it was you blend in and just try to disappear into society. And so for me, was my life. And until I moved here in 2011. And I've had to relearn so many things. And it's been so freeing to be able to stand out instead of blending in. It's been a very interesting journey, but I'm glad that I have been able to get where I am today, and just in full acceptance of myself. And this program helped me with that, honestly. So it's not just that I am giving back, but I'm also taking from it as well. So it's almost a two-way street. This program, it's just been so great to be able to be a part of it.
It makes my heart so happy. Like
Yeah.
all we can hope for, because, and I talk about this with our mentors a lot when we're doing our training for mentors before they enter the program, is this piece that your youth are going to teach you. And I imagine, Nicole, having gone from an environment where you really weren't allowed to be visible in who you were, and how were you supposed to know who the other, folks who identified like you were, other than the bars and the clubs and the drag scene. I'm sure your mentee has taught you a lot about that piece of being visible and being proud.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
These kids are so cool. I can't get over them. They're so neat. Like, they're just living, and I love them.
Actually, if I could add one thing, when Kathy asked me if I would mentor, at that time I still wasn't living, out loud. Like I hid. I went to church, to the Metropolitan Community Church, but like all of my husband's friends, none of them knew. Nobody knew. I didn't tell anybody anything. And when Kathy asked me to be a part of this program, and I accepted, it dawned on me that it would be so hard for me to mentor another person, if I was in hiding. And that's really what made me want to just accept myself fully and just come out and be proud of who I am and not worry about if someone knew or not. So, and that has really helped me be able to mentor. So.
Nicole, I love that. And I'm so glad that you shared that with us. I think it's a really special part of the conversation. We talk a lot about our clients that we see go through, like our insurance and our medical side, right? So if you don't know Trans Family Support Services, we don't just do youth programming. We don't just do any one thing. We also help folks navigate their transitions, however that looks, medical, legal, however. And a lot of the times we see folks who, they go through all the steps that they want to go through, that they feel they go through, and then they go stealth, right? They don't disclose to anyone that they're trans. And it's this really interesting piece of like, how do you find community? How do you connect with community when you're not out and you're not navigating the world with that visibility for yourself? So it's really cool to hear that you've kind of walked that road and then ultimately decided like that wasn't for you, in order to be a full part of this program. It's really cool. Cass, do you want to talk a little bit about, and I don't know so much. I mean, I assume you didn't grow up in the South because I don't think
my
you
accent.
did. I would say I
was
think
actually
you have,
I was born in South
accent.
Carolina. Do you know that?
Oh,
But
shit. Oh, excuse me.
I did mostly. You're gonna have to censor that later. I mostly was raised here in California. But I want to say, like, wow, I feel like your question was it covered so many things. There's so many things to say. So I'll try to boil it down to the key points. One, it's funny that I didn't realize there's like a new trans femme stereotype is that we're quick on emails. No, but what I'll say, let me think. It is very limited. Okay, even as someone who even now, I still struggle to find a diversity of both role models and even just like narratives in mainstream art and pop culture. And so yeah, being a part of a program like this can be, I think one of the biggest parts of it is bringing that here's the types of lives. Here, like you can't. I feel like it, especially when I was, considering coming out or not, which wasn't that long ago, a few years ago. It was like I couldn't. I think there's a struggle to dream about becoming something if you don't even think it's like a possibility. So like seeing other people, like the more broad of role models and like the occupations and the interests and everything, like it's so important, I think, to have I guess a lot of different choices there, because like again, it can feel so limiting if you're only going by like the narratives and the what we see visibly in the world often. So where else was I going to go with this? What was there another part of the question?
Have there been any unique pieces you think to your relationship with your mentee, or even navigating trying to find your own support systems because of being a trans woman, right? And that difference in our community?
So I'm in a lot of like trans femme groups here in San Diego. So, I guess it is nice, because if my mentee ever gets older and wants to find those networks and those Discord servers, I have all that info already. But I mean, what I'll say is it is kind of wonderful. So I also have a mentee that's ethnically the same as me, more or less. And I have like, I think it's always going to come with like a bit of envy. But you're like, wow, this is what my childhood could have been like if I had been born in the Gen Z with its like, so like, I mean, very similar to echo like what Nicole was saying. It's beautiful and wonderful, but also again, little bit envious for someone who's older. That Gen Z, like at least West Coast Gen Z, they've got the flags everywhere and they wear like shirts every day. Like not all of them, but like seeing so many doing that in my school and in, I guess, life, it's like it foretells good things for the future, I guess. So I'm glad we can be a part of it and see it come about.
I think it's one of my favorite parts about getting to work with our youth is seeing how much more open they are. And due to that openness, there's so much more communication with each other. And so like the dissipation of information like happens so much faster for this generation than it did for like when I was in high school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cass, you mentioned that piece of like diversity, not just of, queer identities, right? But also that piece of a broadness of careers that we're able to have in the future. And I feel like, Elio, you can talk a little bit about this as well, since I think for a lot of us, the only real visibility we see of trans folks is in the arts, right? We see a lot of actors and models and writers and creatives. But Elio, you're studying biology. And, what does that look like for you? And how does that help, how does that change your experience? And are you hoping to be the next visible person and to show that we're allowed to enter like the STEM world?
Yes and yes. Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of nuances that comes with being in, I want to say a profession, but I'm not a professional, I'm just a student. But being in, having a career path that's not, creative, or a traditionally like creative career path. Before I came out and had transitioned, I experienced a very different type of discrimination in the sciences that I do now. And so navigating that is very interesting and kind of weird. Because I mean, now I get weird looks when I have my pronouns, in my on my name tag or on our presentations, but people will listen to me when I speak because I'm very male presenting, whereas before I was kind of spoken over. So that's very interesting to navigate, and very interesting to like bring up to people, especially my mentee, and talking about, oh, these are some of the things that you need to think about and consider when you're thinking about what you want to do after college. I mean, God, they still have so much time, but time goes fast. So that's an interesting perspective that I'm able to bring. But I also have an ability to, like Evan, you just said, be that next person that is visible in the sciences, at least in biology. My dream is to one day work for NASA. And so to be able to have, all of this life experience and be a NASA employee without compromising any part of my identity is something that I'm not only excited for, but I think is very needed.
My whole setup just moved and the chat was covering my unmute button. But like, be the next, Ellen Ochoa or Katya, what is her last name? The girl who just went to space. But to be able to be that next person, right? We've seen that a Latina can go to space. Now we've seen that a Mexican-born Latina can go to space through NASA. And so next is you, maybe. Does your mentee want to go into STEM? Does your mentee have any interest in STEM?
No. Very creative. But it's nice to be the person to say this is also an option.
Does it break your heart a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. Whenever any high schooler is like, "Oh, science is so boring," I kind of go, "No, it's not. It was probably just your teacher."
Well, maybe you'll be the new teacher to change that.
Maybe, hopefully, after all of my research.
It's really cool. And Nicole, I feel like you're showing your mentee that like she's allowed to be a parent, right? I don't think we often see that piece of us in parent roles.
So yes, and I have a story about that. So her mom was talking to me one day and about how she was already worried about not being able to have, biological children. And that she would never have kids of her own. And I said, well, she can always adopt. And she said, I told her that. She said, I told her just like you adopted Olivia that she could adopt. And at this point, she had never met my husband before. So she says to her mom, Olivia's adopted? So she had no clue. So, I'm not sure how she thought that worked, but so she goes, you're right, I could. So that was great for her to have that, kind of epiphany. So
I love that. Yeah, we recently with my high schoolers, I was just talking to them about, this piece of one day if they were to be parents. And a lot of them have never really thought about it because what trans parents have they seen? They haven't really seen anyone like them to have children. So I can't imagine how much it must mean for your mentee to be able to see, oh yeah, no, Nicole does have a daughter, and that's her daughter.
Yeah.
And this is just how their family looks, and this is not even a question for me now.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, when I say she had never met my husband, we're both, but my daughter's mixed, and my husband's half Asian, so she had no idea that she was adopted.
So kids are so funny sometimes.
Yes.
I remember when I was growing up, I always assumed that kids took the skin color of their mom just because all of my friends with interracial parents, they all like looked like their moms. And so I just assumed that's how the world worked for years. All right. So we are coming up on the end of our time. We have about 10 minutes left. I have one more question for you all. I always like to end our live streams, our recordings, anything on this, like on a positive, hopeful note. And so what is the joy that your mentee brings to you? We've talked a little bit about the pieces that we've learned from our mentees. Maybe that's the same thing. Maybe like Nicole shared, a little bit with her story earlier, that piece of, you became visible in your identity because of the potential of having a mentee, right? And so maybe it's that same thing, maybe it's something different, but you know, if there's an interaction, if there's something that stands out, what's brought you joy with your current mentees? And Cass, maybe you can get us started on that. I know it's a big question, so let me know if you need more time.
Okay. I do want to really quickly speak on the previous question because I was thinking about it. Like, even when I first came out a few years ago, like part of me was kind of assuming I'd have to like quit teaching because it's such like a public facing, politicized profession to some degree. So I really think that's why I wear the fact that I'm a teacher like on my sleeve when I attend LGBTQ events, because I want other trans people to see that they can teach, like, and that it's totally normal. Going back to this question though, I mean the same thing I said previously, which is like it brings me so much joy and hope for the future to see how like normalized maybe it can be, how just like natural and effortless my mentee at least makes it seem, like being trans, and it makes me feel so like, I don't know, like heartful. It fills my heart with joy to see like that it isn't this stressful, anxious, you know, experience, which is what I feel like a lot of us have been prescribed by society. So yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you, Cass. And Jesse, what's kind of brought you joy with your mentee?
Uh, I think that it's really to, of course, another younger person, but to hear say the things that I've learned over the past 20 years, you know that oh, any mentee that I'm working with, that we can have healthy boundaries, assert ourselves in any way, that we don't have weirdo artist freaks, which I do. But we can be, you know, we can have fun. I was hearing myself say these things and hear that this life is really it's weird sort of reverse therapy for in tandem with my mentee.
Yeah, that piece of like passing on the knowledge that like feels so hard for us to accept of ourselves, right? Of like that piece of like, oh no, like, yeah, we're allowed to have boundaries. We're allowed to not talk to that uncle who like makes weird homophobic comments every time we're around. Like we're allowed to do all that. And then you're saying it out loud to this person and you're like, oh, I should really go through my Facebook friends list.
Yeah, and I think a shift, and just that you don't have to stay home where you're not supportive. You don't have to sort of cower to the only one, any sort of coming out story. And that for me is the most important, visible, because that's not the narrative going to change, is if we speak it ourselves. It's exciting to be part of that.
Definitely. This piece of getting to watch. And gosh, I think it was Cass who mentioned it earlier when we were talking about that piece of like the diversity of our narratives and being able to see that like the trans story doesn't have to be any one thing. We don't have to, I don't know. We don't have to be any one thing or have our stories look any one way. And we get to watch these kiddos experience that full scope. It's really exciting. And Jesse, I feel like you and I, there's got to be another opportunity for us to do a live stream, because I feel like you've mentored so many people throughout the years before being a part of this program. And an hour was not nearly enough time to like fully tap into your knowledge as a mentor and working with this community over a span of years. Because I'm sure that that's changed as well, when you were mentoring folks X amount of years ago versus mentoring folks today. So let's try to make something happen again, and maybe we'll do a tech check beforehand. All right, Elio, what have you learned?
Oh my goodness. What have I not learned, honestly? I feel like any adult who works close with children and has like good relationships with like youth or kids have said this at some point, but my goodness, are kids the future? The way that they talk, the way that they see the world. This is going to be a really niche reference, but there's this kid show called Bluey, and there's an episode where the dad is playing with his kids and they play a game called What's the Name, where the dad points at different objects and pretends to not know what the name is. And at one point, the kids say, "Oh, don't worry about the name, just look at a leaf." And he sees the leaf in this whole new light. And I feel like that's what my mentee does for me and this community. It's just the way that they talk about, their identity and these conversations they're having about labels and pronouns. It absolutely changes everything that I thought I knew about both the community and myself. And it's just so wonderful to see these tiny humans just figuring themselves out and experiencing the world. And like I said, they absolutely are the future.
I love that you call them tiny humans. Your mentee is absolutely the same height as you.
I know.
It's that is the experience. Our kids get taller than us and we just sit there and we're like, why did you do that? Why did you grow?
And we shrink.
Yeah. All right, Nicole, what has being a mentor taught you? What have you learned from your mentee?
Gosh. So, I mean, my favorite part about being a mentor is just seeing how they get to thrive as being their unique, authentic self. And for me, there's nothing more that I wish I could have done is to do that, but I didn't. And to see others get to makes it okay. It makes it okay. So I honestly, it has just, I don't know. That's my favorite part about it. That's 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 what I love so much, is to get to see them thrive. Yeah.
Like, am I jealous of, all of the people going through the same community college system that I did and they get their first 2 years for free? Absolutely, because I had to pay to go to community college. But I would never take that away from them.
Exactly.
And same kind of goes with this, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's just, again, it makes it worthwhile that I get to be a part of that journey for them. It's great. It just makes me happy. Even although so slowly that we're moving forward, it shows me that we are moving forward. So
This conversation made my heart so warm. So, all right, that was my last question for y'all, and this is our time to get to say goodbye to each other. I really appreciate the four of you joining me. I think this program is one that deserves so much respect and high regard, in particular for all of our mentors who are devoting so much of our time and our experiences and our energy to guiding not just these kiddos, but sometimes their entire families through whatever this journey can look like. I've been a part of a lot of those communications where it's been like mom emails me and I say, let me see if I can get you connected to Mentor. And Mentor says, yes, please send mom my contact information. And we're getting all of these pieces together. And I don't think that's ever something that I would have been prepared for when I was first coming out. That this idea that one day I'm going to be helping an entire family walk through this journey. So, hey, if you're interested in joining the Kyler's Konnections program, we are always accepting mentors and mentees. You'll be communicating with me for now, but maybe one day that'll change. If you like me, though, hey, I'm around and we'll be a part of it. It's a program that is designed to fit you and your needs. If you are a person who is not out to anyone, we want to help you get connected to the resources so that you can be out. We know how much of an impact that makes. Or if that's never something that you want, let's see how we can support you in wherever you are right now in your life. So please reach out if you have any questions about joining this program. If you have any questions from our panels or for our panelists, and I'll send an email and say, hey, Nicole, so-and-so asked about like, what did adoption look like as a trans woman and navigating that whole journey? And let's get you more answers. So don't hesitate to reach out. All of our services are completely free, including this program. So if you have any reservations, any questions, any barriers, let's talk about it. And with all of that, again, thank you so much, you all, for joining me. Cass, it looks like maybe the sun came out for a second. I hope that it was, so that you can maybe enjoy a little bit of your day. It looks so cold still outside for me. But let's have a lovely rest of our afternoon, and hopefully I will talk to you all really soon. And to any of my current mentors, I will be sending out the mentor check-in reminder so soon. I am so notoriously late on that, and I love you all. Thank you all so much for being a part of this program. Thank you again to you four for being a part of this panel, and I will talk to you all soon. Cool. Bye, everyone.